Okay, for anyone who missed it, this is a repeat of what we did in the very first C++ class, and hopefully it'll be a lot shorter than what went on in class. I'm not going to go into as many details. So let's switch over to Eclipse, and we'll just start from scratch. We'll just go File, New, C++ project. One thing I just want to point out, let's give it a name, Hello World. This happens on my system, is this checkbox gets checked by default, and even though the min.gw should show up, it doesn't, so I have to click there, and then I can come into executable, say a hello world, and I can pick min.gw gcc right there and say next, and name, and you can put copyright and all that stuff, what the message you want to be, and if you want to use a source folder, and debug and a release build, and we'll talk more about that in the future, but for now we're just going to be using the debug builds, but we'll create both of them. Hit finish, and you get a hello world project. So it looks pretty simple, but there's actually quite a bit going on here, so let's start from the top. C++ programs compile from the top down, so the first thing it sees is this preprocessor directive, this include, and it's including these angle brackets means it's something from the standard library location. I'm sorry, it's just something from a library location. IOStream is from the standard library, the C++ standard library, and IOStream has a function in it called cout, which is short for console out. So that's why we have to include this. It gives us some functionality that other people have written. And then this next line, using namespace std, everything in the standard library lives in a namespace. A namespace is nothing more than a way to encapsulate functions, and we'll have a class on namespaces. But for now, this using namespace std brings everything from the std namespace into what's called scope, so that we can use it without any kind of prefix. If we didn't use this, then what we would have done is down here is we would have had to have prefixed our use of cout with std with the namespace name, and the same thing for endl. It comes from the std namespace, and that would basically be the equivalent. So there's a couple of different ways of doing all these things, but that's enough to get started for now. So we can see the first thing we have is int. This is a type, and we'll talk more about types, but it stands for integer. So this, and then the function name main, and this happens to be a special function name. You can't use this function name other than for the main entry point to your program. Then the two parentheses are for parameters, and main can take parameters, but in this simple example we're not using it. And then the start of the function starts with a curly brace, and it ends with a curly brace down here. So that's the basic anatomy of a function. And then we have our line of code that's sending some text to the console out. In a lot of other programming languages, you might see things, we'll type fake code here, like for C it might have been printf hello. So you're calling a function and passing in a string. In C++ they did it a little bit differently. It looks a little funny to beginners. You get used to it. This console out, and then what they've done is called overloading this stream operator, so it's sending what's to the right to the console out, and then they're doing it again. They're sending some more things to the console out, and this time they're sending something called endl, which stands for end line, which really does two things. It puts a new line character in, and it flushes the buffers, which technically isn't necessary when you're writing to the console. This is another way of sending a new line. This is a literal specifier, so it's known as an escape character. So you use backslash and n, and now instead of sending the letter n, it's going to send this special character called a new line. And so we'll go ahead and we'll build. And you can see down here we've got the console window open. If yours isn't showing, then usually under Window, Show View, Console, you can get it to show in almost any window, and Eclipse can be moved around and docked in other places. We're going to leave this here for now. And then you can resize windows by, there's a little separator bar there that lets you drag things, and the same thing's true here and over here. And then, since we have two builds, and I've already built this before, and then I renamed the project, so that looked a little confusing, but so debug hello world is the application, so I'm going to start a new one here. Okay, so to get a new, when you start off, you won't have anything in here. So what you want to do is click up on the, you want to say I want a C++ application, then click this new launch configuration, and then you can give it a name of any kind. Just call it the Hello World Take Two, and then it's giving you a relative path, and the relative path is in the debug folder to HelloWorld.exe, and it's of this project called Hello World. So now we're pointing at the right place. The other project that I created earlier, when I renamed this Hello World mod, it was pointing to here. So there we go. We've got that. We can hit apply, or we could have just hit run, and there it is. It runs hello C++ students. So that's the basic structure. These are comments at the top. Anything that starts with a / is a comment. Then we hit a preprocessor directive. The common one is include. We're asking for the IO stream library. Then we're telling it, well, we know these things live in this namespace called std, so please use that namespace so that I don't have to type std. Then we're seeing our special function main, our curly brackets to start where our code. Your code is always going to go inside. You don't want to put code up here. You can put defines, and you can put constants, and there are some other things, but executable code has to go inside a function of some sort. And then finally, main actually returns an int value, so returning 0 indicates no error. So return is just saying return this value, and that should do it.